The world is loud. Banging, clanging, running, raining, industry, talking, walking. For Sherlock Holmes, the world is... The first thing I notice about this film is not only the snappy editing or the intensely witty directing, but it's the pace at which this film moves in certain moments that make you slow down. I love so much about this film, and I'm not sure if I could fit it all into this video without it devolving into a rambling, nonsensical mess. But let's talk about how Guy Ritchie chooses to depict not only the mind, but the social atmosphere of the eponymous world's greatest detective sans Batman, Sherlock Holmes. I think I've always had complicated feelings about not only how Sherlock is depicted in film and television adaptations, but how detectives are depicted, because generally there are only two mystery adaptation styles out there. Don't even try to challenge me on this. I'm right, you're wrong, end of discussion. 1, we are the partner of the detective, and we can solve the mystery by just looking at all the clues and putting our gray cells together. Rian Johnson has successfully played with this formula to perfection 3 times so far. I mean, 4 if you're counting Brick. Then the other kind is the detective is far away and isolated. The work is mysterious and important. You must marvel at the raw genius of the man because you could never figure it out. And that's what BBC's Sherlock is to me. And I'm sorry, Stephen Moffat, but I couldn't be bothered to care. Detectives are cool, and the intricacies of a mystery novel story is marvelous, but putting the audience anywhere besides the driver's seat or very close feels like a mistake to me. And despite what people might lead you to believe, this movie manages to put you in the driver's seat while making the very mind of Sherlock something that it itself is an ongoing process of understanding. Sherlock Holmes through the mind of Guy Ritchie is a socially detached, highly intelligent man who fails to meet people in the moment with thoughtfulness because of how overwhelming the details and the urge for the truth is. If anything, if nothing else is relatable, that is relatable. Throughout the film, we see many examples of how his mind works. Rather than showing a televisual infographic of a bunch of numbers flapping all over the place, we have juxtapositions of sound and visual profiles, his mind casing the room, as it were. He can't help but think, and that's the problem. That's why he boxes.
And he doesn't go flagellate himself by going to a bare-knuckle boxing ring. It's the only place where he doesn't think. Even there he thinks, because he thinks about how to win the fight, but he doesn't think about all of these going concerns of life or interpersonal relations. Don't enter into it. It's just you and your opponent.
The opening of the story of this film shows Sherlock and Watson at their finest, saving a girl from death at the hands of some seemingly mystical serial killer, Lord Blackwood, showing the mastery of Sherlock's mind as well as Watson's medical pedigree. Cut to credits. The ultimate mystery-solving duo did it again, captured the bad guy, solved the mystery, saved the day-to-day, wrap it up. But that's not how it wraps, is it? No. This story isn't that simple. Lord Blackwood, the killer of 5 girls for the purpose of ritual sacrifice, is sentenced to death by hanging, but before he goes to die, Blackwood begs one final request: to speak to Holmes himself alone. The walk up to the cell of Blackwood will prove to be a useful series of events. There are men on the street proselytizing about the end of the world, citing Daniel, Revelation, what have you. You've read Watchmen. It's a dime a dozen. Holmes enters the prison to see a guard writhing in pain. Some supernatural influence on the part of Blackwood has taken over. Holmes takes note, but he is relatively unaffected. He is a man of science, a man of logic, only what can be perceived. We see manic scrawlings over the prison walls. We hear whispers of apocalyptic scripture as Holmes walks towards Blackwood. Blackwood rationalizes all the deaths he brought about as these 5 women were called upon to serve a greater purpose. Sherlock avoids eye contact, responding with snark, disarming Blackwood's zealous rant.
I wonder if they'd let Watson and me dissect your brain after you hang, of course. I'd wager there's some deformity that'd be scientifically significant. Then you, too, could serve a greater purpose.
Blackwood leers closer, building the myth in Sherlock's midst. Widen your gaze. Steal your mind. Now the official hanging of Lord Blackwood by the Scotland Yard sets up the first big motif of this whole story, which is the Raven. Nevermore.
At one time, people were convinced that when someone died, a raven carried their soul to the land of the dead. Sometimes, however, such horrible, sad, and painful things happened that the soul could not rest. So, sometimes, but only sometimes, the raven would bring the soul back so that it would set things right.
The Raven literally has meant many different things over the millennia, from the vehicle of the macabre in Edgar Allan Poe's writings to the creator of the world in Tlingit culture. The Raven became a symbol, a motif of its own in our codified fear or reverence of it. And the film, and I feel Lord Blackwood, puts that to use. The Raven is death. Respect it, fear it. The myth of the Raven is exactly what Blackwood counts on. Superstition and theater is the real magic that gets him what he wants. Going even further, the magic of this film is not what is true, but what is perceived to be true. Put a sequence of events in a certain context, in a certain light, and you have a pretext for whatever you want people to believe. No sequence better exemplifies this storytelling philosophy than the following of Irene after her conversation with Sherlock. You first see Watson's side of it, obscuring the full course of events. Then when Watson finally talks to Holmes, he completes the story, adds the context. What was one series of events becomes another entirely. When Holmes disguises himself and follows Irene to the carriage, he engages in the very same theater of lies that Blackwood and Irene engage in. But he does so in search of the truth. After we're all caught up, the constable arrives to tell Watson and Holmes something quite shocking. Blackwood has risen from the grave.
You're not taking this seriously, are you, Holmes?
Yes, as you should. It's a matter of professional integrity. No girl wants to marry a doctor who can't tell if a man's dead or not.
After Holmes teases Watson about this perplexing series of events, they venture to Blackwood's supposed gravesite, or should I say, tomb. The cops bring out the coffin of Lord Blackwood, but in his place is Reardon, a small scientist who Irene Adler was fond of. Blackwood is gone. Now the myth builds. The tomb is broken from within. He is risen. It all slides into place. Then, even stranger, the witness to the resurrection of one Lord Blackwood, who was catatonic a moment ago, gives this foreboding warning.
I know what I saw. It was Blackwood. As clear as I see you. And when the dead walk, the living will fill these coffins.
Is this pure unbridled theater, or has he truly defeated death? Now the dynamic duo that is Watson and Holmes venture through the London streets, discussing the potential answers of the case. They're both open to the possibilities of what it might bring, but Holmes is clearly more adverse to a supernatural angle. Watson has traveled the world and is more open to superstition, but Holmes retorts with a modus operandi that we could all do well to act by.
It's a huge mistake to theorize before one has data. Inevitably, one begins to twist facts to shoot theories instead of theories to shoot facts.
Holmes and Watson investigate the craven lab of a brilliant scientist, Reardon, who was in Blackwood's employ, seeing the remains of many experiments with rats and frogs. Remember this. Hired goons arrive to torch the laboratory of Reardon, and a fight breaks out. Very important to remember here is that Sherlock would genuinely not survive without Watson. He cannot fight in the, I have brawn kind of sense. He has the fighting know-how. He has the dexterity to fight, but only as long as he can think. We're thrown through a door. Sherlock discovering a handheld electricity conductor which he uses to fight back, eventually breaking down the door. Breaking into a chase, throwing us into a construction site of a rather large barge. Sherlock runs as this giant Frenchman tries to clobber him. Large hammer, small hammer. As Sherlock tries to fight and run, the Frenchman demolishes the construction site, as we see this theme of industry and the destructive nature of the men who abuse new and old technologies amidst it, and the barge slams into the Thames. Now, prison. The hours drudge by, then Holmes wakes, almost drooling on Watson's shoulder. Watson vents and complains, saying he's been reviewing all the notes from all their capers through the years, and all he can conclude is he is disturbed. Let's put a pin in that for a moment and return to it later. Time passes. Sherlock's bail is posted, but by who? Well, members of the Temple of the Four Orders, the cult that Lord Blackwood was servicing. Holmes is sat in a carriage with a bag over his head in the hopes that he wouldn't know where he's going, but they didn't account for his other senses.
I'm sure it's quite a mystery as to where you are and who I am.
As to where I am, I was admittedly lost for a moment between Charing Cross and Holborn, but I was saved by the bread shop on Saffron Hill, the only baker to use a certain French glaze on their loaves, a Brittany sage. After that, the carriage forked left and right, a telltale bump with a fleet conduit. And as to who you are, that took every ounce of my not inconsiderable experience. The letters on your desk are addressed to Sir Thomas Rotherham, Lord Chief Justice, that'd be your official title. Who you really are is, of course, another matter entirely. Judging by the sacred ox on your ring, you're also the secret head of the Temple of the Four Orders, in whose headquarters we now sit, on the northwest corner of St. James Square, I think. As to the mystery, the only mystery is why you bothered to blindfold me at all.
The only way the Order continues to exist is obscuration. The work is mysterious and important, and who cares if a few unimportant people die in the process? Holmes throws a wrench in that logic because logic Pure truth is the antidote to superstition and subterfuge. The most fascinating thing about all of this is beyond the pure stupidity of the Lord's begging for Holmes' help at the outset of Blackwood's machinations, that this whole cult is run by the white elite of its day. Something familiar. The working of the Temple of the Four Orders is something that only functions because of the institution it resides in. And just like other murderous, fanatical cults of the past, people reside within it, serve it, believe it for a variety of different reasons. Whether it's opportunists grasping for power, those born into those systems, like Blackwood, or zealots willing to do anything for belonging. And how do you attract all these bad actors without this big power machine? You craft a myth, a restoration of a former people's identity. Blackwood talking about restoring the true Britain. You create a concept of power that can only be achieved through the sacrifice of a separate group of people. And most importantly, you put yourself at the top, because there is no lack of hierarchy in these systems. In fact, hierarchy is their greatest tool. Someone must befit the throne. In this myth, we have this mixture of Judeo-Christianity, something reminiscent of the Freemasons or the Skull and Bones, with a dash of exaggerated Satanism. And with this myth hodgepodge of myths, we have age-old symbols like the raven. With every single death in this film, we are visited by a raven and a loss of light, an omen, a harbinger of death. Every death, it happens. Is there a supernatural explanation for this, or is it all theater? First Reardon, the small scientist, then Blackwood's father, Sir Thomas, who died in his bathtub, the American John Standish, who defied the power of Blackwood. What does it all mean? All right. I think before we can find the answers to this question, that is it supernatural or mere trickery, we first need to understand what makes a true Sherlock Holmes story.
That's so fucking sick, dude.
I was watching Supernatural until I fell asleep. Like a true.
Must have only
true
taken
adult.
5 minutes then. Whoa. I haven't watched a single episode of that show, so.
What do you think makes a great Sherlock Holmes story?
All right. Well, what makes a good Sherlock Holmes story is, number one, you gotta have a good Sherlock. You gotta have a guy who, he's quirky, he's strange, he's a little bit off, but he cares genuinely about what he's doing. He's not just doing it because he's not doing it for like pride or for money or for, glory or whatever. He's doing it purely because he likes investigating stuff and he likes helping people. Like that's his whole thing. And you got to have a good Watson. You got to have someone who's you got to have someone who is also intelligent and also is capable, but is still suitably dumbfounded and thrown off by whatever this other guy is doing. And I don't know, you just got to have an interesting mystery. It doesn't necessarily have to be the most complex or the most solvable mystery in the world for the audience. Just as long as it's compelling and it's an interesting problem, it's got to tickle your intrigue,
How did you get into Sherlock Holmes?
I don't know. I just kind of decided I'd like to read these books. I was they seem interesting. I like mysteries. I've always liked mysteries. Mysteries are my favorite genre, pretty much. And I think that every story can be made better by adding a good mystery to it. Is kind of how I feel. Um, and so I grew up with like Murder She Wrote and Columbo and like I love the Knives Out movies. Knives Out is my favorite movie. And so but I realized I never was actually that familiar with Sherlock Holmes specifically. Although I did see The Great Mouse Detective, and I loved The Great Mouse Detective as a kid.
Great movie.
Um, Great movie. Also, shockingly like a shockingly accurate adaptation of Sherlock Holmes, considering the fact that they're mice, and they
So
are trying to.
how does Great Mouse Detective rank compared to BBC Sherlock?
It ranks higher. I think the thing that really sticks out to me is that Sherlock is a guy who really feels his emotions. He's like, a lot of adaptations of Sherlock Holmes will be like, no, he's just like this cold, robotic, like
He
doesn't do
feels
anything.
nothing.
When that's like not true at all in the
Yeah.
stories. Like Watson will say things like he was very cold and very things, but like especially as the stories keep going and like Watson becomes better friends with Sherlock, you can tell that he's just a little bit neurodivergent. He feels emotions very strongly, but he just doesn't really express them in the way that other people around him do, especially in like Victorian London, where there's everything's very prim and proper, and there's a very like specific way of expressing things. He just doesn't like the way he expresses his emotions doesn't really register to people. He's a very like caring and a very like sensitive person,
Yes.
and he takes things very hard when they go badly. And one thing that I think is that he really deeply cares about Watson, and to the point where, which is something that is adapted into this movie. In the book, he gets depressed when Watson moves out, and because he moves in with his wife, and he like misses Watson. He wants him to come back, but he doesn't say that because he's too proud. But like that's something that is like, and you could argue you could argue jealousy, you could argue envy, you could argue that's because he feels romantic feelings for Watson, and I think that's a valid reading. I personally don't subscribe to the idea that there like is a romantic attraction between the two, but like I can absolutely see why someone would.
Yeah,
And
I think there's just something. I almost want to say like there's something deeper.
I think what is true is that Watson and Sherlock have a very deep, like very strong emotional bond.
Yeah.
They care very deeply for each other, and that could be interpreted as romance, and it could be interpreted as just platonic. I don't think it really matters either way.
Yeah, I
because
know.
It's clear that they do love each other.
Yeah,
that is undeniable.
I mean, all that really matters is that it is like there is a deep love between them, and
I think that's awesome. Inconsistency.
Yes.
Which is part of why I'm not a huge stickler for details with adaptations, because like even the stories aren't accurate to themselves sometimes.
Well, yeah, like the like the Deerstalker hat. You talked about
Right.
how that was, it was only in like the like illustrations in the magazine or something.
Yeah, it's not. They never mention Sherlock wearing a Deerstalker hat at pretty much any of the stories. They never say that. In fact, he's usually just like depicted. He only wears the Deerstalker hat when he's outside. Usually, he's just depicted with like kind of just combed back hair, and he wears like a comfortable evening wear. He does smoke a pipe a lot. They do mention that he smokes a pipe, but
Yeah.
the Deerstalker hat is pretty much only from famous drawings where he's standing outside, and it's distinctive enough that they just kept drawing him in it until eventually it became synonymous with the character. Because they don't really okay, actually, interestingly, part of the reason that the Deerstalker hat is associated with Sherlock specifically is because Sherlock got international appeal. Deerstalker hats were very localized to the time. They were a very British hat. They were like very, very British. They didn't really have them in any other parts, even in like Europe. So when adaptations and translations of Sherlock Holmes stories would come along with the illustrations, that people will be like, oh, this hat I've never seen before. It must be a Sherlock Holmes thing, and so they started associating it with this character,
Gotcha.
rather than with like just English outdoor wear.
Like it was building like an iconography, even if it wasn't
Yeah,
in the story itself.
and now that deerstalker hats have like fallen out of fashion as like regular, outdoor wear, they stuck around as the only reason we still see them around is because of Sherlock Holmes stories. So,
What would you say, like personally, what makes a good adaptation?
I mean, it's just someone who like you can tell that someone has like read the material, and engages with the material on its own terms, and is not afraid to make changes, but understands what the core appeal of the stories is. And for me, the core appeal is just seeing this guy like do his thing, and be a like an interesting he's an interesting guy to like see, because he makes you feel like you're learning something when you're around him. It's not so much, and this is my issue with the BBC Sherlock Holmes. Like, there's a lot of things you can say about it, like about like Stephen Moffat's writing or whatever. I don't care about that. I mean, not really. I mean, I kind of care, but the part that kind of chaps my ass about that story is
I'm gonna
how
quote
they
you on that.
present Sherlock. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The part that bothers me is how they present Sherlock, and they present him as like this, like, oh, he's so fucking smart, and he's so fucking smart and cool, and he's smarter and cooler than you, and you don't know what's going on in his head because he's a smart, cool god, and he knows it, and he's just operating on a whole fucking another level, and like every villain is specifically out to get him because he's so fucking smart, guys. Like, here's the thing, Moriarty, I absolutely love Andrew Scott as an actor.
Yeah.
I think he also gives a great performance in this show. I just fucking hate Moriarty in that show because he's so fucking annoying. Because he's just like, oh, Sherlock, I'm the freaking Joker. He's the Joker.
What makes good literature?
If it's a good fucking story, am I right? You just gotta have a good fucking story. And that's kind of a joke, but like not really. I mean, I think what I said to you last time was that what makes good literature, and this, I say literature, when I say literature, I don't just mean books. I mean like movies or plays or video games or like anything, like anything that's like in the pop culture, in the cultural lexicon. Something is good literature if it does something that makes you feel or think, I think. If something like provokes an emotion in you, or provokes a thought, is thought provoking, or makes you want to have conversations about it, I think that is a sign of good literature, because I think the worst thing a piece of art can do is bore you. Because if something is boring you, then you're not being driven to engage with it. Like, even if you think something is terrible, like if you think like you're actively hating it the whole way through, and you're like, this is terrible, I hate every decision that's being made, this is making me angry, that's still like
You're still feeling something about it.
Yeah.
Like it's still achieving something.
Like or like The Room. I think that The Room by Tommy Wiseau is genuinely, and I'm not being ironic when I say this, is a cultural touchstone, because it has you can define it however you want. You could say it's irony, or you can say it's just making fun of it, or if people genuinely appreciate its like strange charm. It has like made an impression on like so many people, and I think that's really cool, even if it's like it's The Room,
Yeah. Like at least it's it's an image that has been able to like carry itself
right
more eternally
than
like, some other bad movies.
When I think of like the worst, what the worst movie I've ever seen is, by my own definition, is probably a movie called See, I can't remember what it's called. But it's like it's like
What's it about?
It's like some kind of 2000s post like 9/11 like disaster movie where aliens invade Los Angeles and like they like have to like do stage like a Call of Duty type ground thing on it. It's
Man,
Los Angeles.
We had so many
Battle Los Angeles.
We had so
Battle
many
Los Angeles,
so many post 9/11 aliens invade movies.
Yeah. Something political commentary. But yeah, this movie, because I remember because the reason I remember this movie is not because of anything that actually happens in it, but because I remember how I felt watching it, and I felt absolutely nothing watching it. And I remember the review I left for it when I first watched it on Letterboxd. Let me see if I can find it. But I remember it was. I just said. Let me look at my. No, I don't want to log it again. I didn't watch it again. Dear God. Okay. I said I cannot remember a single individual thing that happened in this movie I just finished watching. Like, it had made so little of an impression on me that, like, right after watching it, I did not remember anything that had happened in it. And the only things I do remember from it are from like looking it up after the fact.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, so that's what was happening. Because it's like the most. I'm sure there's some Battle Los Angeles fans out there, so I'm sorry, but it's like the most just like nothing. It's just like slop.
That's how I feel. That's how I feel about the Tomorrow War, starring Chris Pratt.
Yes. Yeah, I think I saw a video about that, and it looks like the same kind of movie.
Because I watched that with my family once, and that movie is like the like grayest piece of slop I have ever seen. Because there's nothing notable about it.
Yeah. And I just think that's the worst thing I think literature is the opposite of that. Literature is something that like makes you think, makes an impression on you, like it can change your life if it's good enough.
Yeah.
Just something that like it's art that provokes something in you, I think is what good literature is.
Yeah, I think provoke is a good word for it. It's something that like it begins new ideas within you.
Which is to say, Batman v Superman is the best movie ever made. It's the most literature movie.
Because it's the most provocative.
It provokes so much in you. But like, I think that there's genuinely a case to be made that movies like Freddy Got Fingered or Movie 43 or whatever are like in themselves interesting pieces of art because they're so horrendous that they provoke like memory. They provoke memory as like people remember them and they want to rewatch them because they're fascinated by the spectacle.
This is why this essay is secretly about Freddy Got Fingered.
Yeah, everyone should watch Freddy Got Fingered right now. Based off of the recommendation of Batman Ultra 7.
It's the clear number one movie. It's the best Sherlock Holmes adaptation.
It's the best Sherlock Holmes adaptation, that's for sure.
All this talk about literature and what makes a good Sherlock Holmes adaptation, what makes a great mystery novel, it has me thinking about good to know I'll have a migraine for the rest of the week. Well, seeing the AI elephant in the room is unavoidable. Let's address it. I am a film major. I'm also the son of a English teacher, so I sit in a very not fun place in the AI debates. On a film set, I had a conversation with fellow film majors that gave me pause, to say the least. It started out with the firm line drawn in the sand that AI can never and should never be used in film. That's awesome. Let's go with that. I love that. But then, where they lost me with it is essays, though. That's free game. I don't need that. What does that mean? You are seriously going to tell me that you're so passionate about the art of cinema that you won't allow generative AI to colonize it, but the written word doesn't matter? We must protect film at all costs, but language, that's up for grabs? I know I'm an essayist. I know I'm a writer. I know I'm a book nerd, but speaking purely from a film perspective, I cannot fathom not being passionate about the spoken and written language that makes so much film sing. Also, how can you aspire to tell stories and not find value in well-founded argumentation, in doing your research well, in finding your voice? Why must we draw the line so selfishly, so idiotically, so brainlessly? Why do we care about so little that is core to the human experience? Before film, there was photography. Before photography, there was painting. Before painting, we scrawled on walls. We spoke great stories to our scribes. We told stories around the campfire, and those stories freed our souls to dance in the shadows and the light of the fire. When did we lose that fierce freedom? Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes is about two things primarily: perception and power through industrialization. We have the fight at the docks, where the barge is destroyed. It's deconstructed. We have the trap at the butcher house, where the three of Irene Adler, Sherlock Holmes, and John Watson are almost slaughtered by an unmanned butchering block. Then the slip of the grenade, the fiery inferno. No god's fury, no red right hand involved, just a trap organized by a man. Sherlock masquerades as a physician to save Watson's life because he doesn't want anyone else to do it. The only one who knows is Mary. Mary sees through it.
I know that you care for him as much as I do. This is not your responsibility, it was his choice. He'd say that it was worth the wounds. Solve this. Whatever it takes.
This is where we return to that line from earlier. Sherlock can't accurately communicate his love and care for Watson, but through his obsessions, through his mind, save his life? He can do that. Now the time comes where we must put everything together. To dismantle the myth, Holmes does the ritual. Sherlock takes what amounts to a blood rite and an acid trip, understanding the symbolism of the rite, cracking the last symbol needed for the ritual. Reardon is the man. Sir Thomas, the ox, John Standish, the eagle, of course. Finally, the lion is Parliament. Now, the real game is afoot. After explaining the connections of all the symbology, the religious history of the Order, and what Blackwood is going to do next, Scotland Yard, controlled by the Order, circles. Holmes lets Adler and Watson escape as the police rush in, taking Holmes to a meeting with the second-in-command to Blackwood, one Lord Coward, the Home Secretary, Blackwood's man on the inside. Coward begins the scene with this wistful curiosity about Holmes' musings of conspiracy, thinking he has the upper hand with a handcuffed detective, but as Holmes' unreciprocated deductions unfurl, Coward betrays his master without intention.
How terrible is wisdom when it brings no profit to the wise. We take power at noon.
There isn't any time to waste there, is there?
Sherlock taunts Coward, escapes his handcuffs, obscures his escape with the smoke from the fire, deduces where the biochemical weapon is, and jump. Sherlock is rescued by Watson and his sailor friend in the water, en route to the location of the chemical weapon. As Parliament congregates together, Blackwood stands over them, waiting for his time. Outside Parliament, the street preacher plays into the hand of Blackwood, stoking fear-mongering in the people, making Blackwood's lie manifest. Holmes, Watson, and Adler enter the sewers, discovering the weapon that was masterminded by Blackwood and executed by the late Reardon. The secret ingredient being cyanide, the smell of bitter almonds. Now, the speech Blackwood gives to Parliament reveals it all. Using the superstition of London, he stokes the built-in fear to make himself seem all the more powerful. He has this cyanide gas chemical weapon rigged. He had his men drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak, but the reverse of the historical meaning. He gave them an inoculation so that they might survive while everyone else dies, making him seem all the more divine. Adler deduces down below that if they simply remove a canister from the cyanide machine, that it would stop working. They don't need the remote control. So they create a controlled explosion. Her escaping with a piece of the machine. Holmes and Watson left to fight the Frenchman henchmen. When Blackwood realizes his scheme isn't going to work, he runs with his tails between his legs. Ineffectual without his toys. Now, the finale. The ultimate symbol of British industrialization, the London Bridge, is where we set our scene, with the final showdown between Blackwood and Holmes. We get a classic cane versus sword fight. Wouldn't have it any other way. The Raven returns for Blackwood's real death. They tussle for a minute as Sherlock unravels Blackwood's lies.
Ingenious. Like all great performers, you saved your pièce de résistance for the end. A chemical weapon distilled from cyanide and refined in the bellies of swine. Had it worked, your followers in Parliament would have watched unharmed as their colleagues were dying around them. They didn't know that you'd given them the antidote. Instead, they would have believed it was magic and that you'd harnessed the ultimate power. And the world would have followed, fear being the most powerful weapon of all. You'd better hope that it's nothing more than superstition, as you performed all the rituals perfectly. The devil's due a soul, I'd say.
Then Sherlock invokes superstition one more time before fate strikes its final blow. Blackwood, the cowardly architect of death and arbiter of Christian nationalist power, hangs himself on his aspirations and industrial power, the exact chains with which he'd use to enslave those he'd deem beneath him. He is no Christ, merely a Judas, bastard son, hung on a tree. I fear this is not a resolution any bad actors in our time will receive, at least not in due time. The system in which we live, as it stands, serves to reward those who take advantage of its gears for their own gain. For example, Those who take AIPAC bribes excel in their office. The bombs continue to be sent to Iran, Gaza, and so on. The speechifiers of hate on our own ground are vilified and made Messiah before our own eyes. There is no perfect karmic justice as seen in this film. So perfect. Something out there, someone out there has other plans for this god-awful man who invoked the gods, killed the innocent, stoked the dogmatic fear of that which is divine, and sought power over his fellow man in the process, the only power worth seeking being the truth, that which brings justice, not peace and quiet.